We're just over halfway through the NFL regular season, and there are still 17 teams with winning records. That's a bit of an issue considering there are only 14 playoff spots. And while there's plenty of time for groups like the Baltimore Ravens and Minnesota Vikings to surge and sour some of these good starts, at least 3 of these 17 teams will be disappointed. In this video, we'll review all those teams with a positive win-loss differential in a segment I'm calling Contenders or Pretenders, NFL Fraud Watch, determining who's who in the 2025 to 2026 season using data and analysis. It's a long title. We'll be using my proprietary Fraud Watch scoring system, which seeks to answer the most important questions surrounding all of these teams. Are they legit or full of shit? Here's how it works. First, I took 7 different stats that I believe determine the seriousness of a team. Point differential, yard differential, offensive turnovers, offensive EPA, defensive EPA, the difference between these EPA numbers, and opponent winning percentage. I also added 2 more qualitative measurements too. These included whether the team's success was sustainable, factoring in one-score wins and turnover differential, and how much I personally trust the team, factoring in player talent, coaching, and schedule. Then, I assigned a score of 0 to 3 to each of these categories. For the stats, these scores are based on the standard deviation of the numbers in relation to the average among these 17 squads, and for the other measurements, well, I used my gut. God forbid a white boy trusts his instincts. This means the highest possible score was a 27 and the lowest 0. Finally, I grouped these teams into 5 categories: contenders, playoff teams, are they for real, don't trust them, and frauds. Let's get into them and start with the contenders. These were the 6 teams that scored between 18 and 19, with the next closest teams coming in with a score of 15. These are the cream of the crop right now. The Buffalo Bills. With Josh Allen in 6 straight years of making the playoffs, it's no surprise Buffalo lands in contender status. Their point differential of 68 and yard differential of 594 land them above where the averages among these 7 teams were, while their offensive EPA per play and difference between offensive and defensive EPA land them in the upper echelon of these teams. The biggest knock on the Bills is their easy schedule up to this point. Their opponents combined for only a 27-42 record, and they lost to the up-and-coming Patriots and a shaky Falcons team in back-to-back weeks. But their latest win against Kansas City, in which their defense played their best game of the season, provides some confidence around how this Bills team stacks up against some of the better competition around the league. While their 2 losses and early defensive struggles may keep them from confidently being described as dominant so far, I don't think we're a long way away from this team re-emerging as the clear favorite in the AFC, if they haven't already. The Detroit Lions. Over the past 2 seasons, Detroit has become one of the more dominant teams and feel-good stories of the NFL. Head coach Dan Campbell has chomped off the kneecaps of so many other teams that now his group stands taller than most. The Lions land here primarily based on being better than average in every category. They have a 61 point differential, 448 yard differential, and rank as the 3rd and 6th best team in defensive and offensive EPA per play, respectively. Aiden Hutchinson grades as the 4th best defensive player in the league via PFF, while Jared Goff continues being a good option at quarterback, throwing 17 touchdowns to just 3 picks on the year. However, Detroit plays in a very tough NFC North, which includes the Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, and Minnesota Vikings. In fact, they're currently 2nd in their division due to losses against the Rams and Chiefs, and a surprising defeat to the J.J. McCarthy-led Vikings this most recent week. What gets them into contender status, beyond just their stats, are my trust in this organization, and the fact they've played one of the tougher schedules among these 17 teams, with an overall opponent win percentage of .508. Despite being just 5-3, there are arguments to make Detroit your Super Bowl pick with how solid they've been throughout the year and the heights they've reached in the past, particularly last season. The Los Angeles Rams. Like an inconspicuous but very smelly fart, the Los Angeles Rams have been silent but deadly this year. They aren't always mentioned among the class of the NFC, especially when you've got teams like the Lions, Broncos, and Eagles in there, but they really should be. 37-year-old Matthew Stafford continues defeating Father Time and the back injury monster as he's emerged as a legitimate MVP candidate. Stafford currently sits with the 4th best odds to win the award, and why not? He's already racked up more than 2,100 yards, leads the league in touchdowns with 21, and has thrown just 2 picks. As The Athletic's Nate Adkins pointed out, he's only the 4th quarterback in NFL history to post that strong of a ratio through 8 games. But for as high-powered as this offense can look, Los Angeles was actually below the average for offensive EPA per play among this group of 17 teams. However, their defensive stats did more than enough to lift them up. They're the 2nd best team in the league in defensive EPA per play. Shout out edge rusher Byron Young, whose 9 sacks are good for 3rd most in the league. Really, Los Angeles is playing that coveted style of complementary football that everyone's talking about. It's a buzz phrase that's become especially popular this year, but the Rams are actually doing it. They had the 2nd biggest point differential and 6th biggest yard differential, while playing a slightly harder than average schedule compared to the other winning teams. Watch out for the Rams. They look for real. The Kansas City Chiefs. A 5-4 record is very un-Chiefs-like. In fact, it's tied with 2021 for their worst record through 9 games since Patrick Mahomes became a full-time starter, and yet, it's still hard to bet against them. Until we actually see their downfall, any predictions of it are likely to be greatly exaggerated. And it goes beyond just the trust of their quarterback and head coach Andy Reid, and the fact the NFL scriptwriters would really like to see Travis Kelce win a Super Bowl and kiss Taylor Swift at midfield before riding off into the sunset. Statistically, they've remained one of the best teams in the league. Despite being nearly 500, they hold a 76-point differential, 4th best among this group, and have outgained their opponents by over 700 yards. After a couple years of turbulence, the offense is back to being one of the best units by EPA per play, currently tied for 3rd best in the league. With receiver Xavier Worthy returning from injury and Rashee Rice from crashing his fucking car, there's reason to believe this offense may only get more explosive. The biggest knock against the Chiefs is just the hole they're being forced to dig out of. If the playoffs started today, they'd be on the outside looking in. Going forward, they'll need to figure out how to start winning 1-score games again. All 4 of their losses have come in this situation. They've played one of the toughest schedules up to this point, and while it will get easier with games against the Tennessee Titans and Las Vegas Raiders in the back half of the season, there's still plenty of tough competition they'll have to fight through. The Chiefs profile as a contender, but if they don't start getting some of that luck they had last season, we could see them as being one of the best teams to miss the playoffs in several years. The Indianapolis Colts. A really bad loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers this past week has made the Indianapolis Colts a little less exciting to talk about, and definitely gave me some pause on just how serious this group is. The Colts coughed up the ball 6 times after turning it over just 4 times on the season up to that point. So it begs the question, was this game an aberration, or was it the turning point in which everything starts to fall apart? Trusting Indianapolis comes down to how well you think their team will translate when playing better competition, and if you think the old Daniel Jones will rear his ugly generic head again. Up to this point, the Colts have played the easiest schedule among these 17 teams, with a combined opponent record of just 22-44. Still, good teams usually crush bad ones, and the Colts lead the league in point differential at 109 and EPA per play differential at .22, and they've outgained opponents by 464 yards. Head coach Shane Steichen has put together a beautiful offense this season, one that attacks other teams on early downs and forces them to commit the rushing attack led by Jonathan Taylor to open up passing lanes for Danny Dimes. All the while, the defense has been solid and just got better with the infusion of Sauce Gardner before the trade deadline. At 7-2, it's difficult to see the Colts falling out of a playoff spot. That feels nearly guaranteed. I'm giving them contender status right now, but this later part of their schedule, including games against KC, Seattle, and Jacksonville, will tell us a lot more about them. The Seattle Seahawks. I love this Seattle team, and it's not just because I have a soft spot in my heart for quarterback and subject of my favorite subreddit, Sam Darnold. But on old Darnie, he's been really great this year. You can see it statistically, like how he's graded as PFF's best quarterback and currently on pace for 4,400 yards, 34 touchdowns, and 10 picks. But you can also see it with the eye test, as he and Jackson Smith-Njigba, the best receiver in the league this year, have developed a fantastic chemistry almost instantly. What may be even more exciting than what this offense has already done, though, could be where they can go. While they have outscored opponents by 81 points and outgained them by 441 yards, their offensive EPA per play is actually one of the lower numbers among this group. Maybe part of that is the fact the next closest Seahawk receiver to JSN's league-leading 948 yards through 8 games is Cooper Kupp with just 293. Rather, it's been their defense that's helped them emerge as one of the 6 contenders in this exercise. The unit currently sits as the 7th best in the league by EPA. To sustain success, Seattle will need to clean up their turnovers, they are currently -3 in turnover differential, and make the offense a little less predictable. A little injection from Rashid Shaheed at the deadline should give Darnold another guy to throw to. With Seattle, Los Angeles, and the San Francisco 49ers all sitting with 6 wins, it's going to be an absolute battle for the NFC West division this year. Alright, now let's move on to the tier I'm calling playoff teams. Essentially groups that have a great shot of being one of the final 14 and could absolutely go on a run, but they wouldn't necessarily be a Super Bowl pick, for me at least. These teams received between 14 and 15 in my scoring system. The Denver Broncos. There's no denying that the Broncos are a good team. I just wish they didn't have to go Super Saiyan every 4th quarter just to win a game. Like, I really can't tell if Bo Nix is a good quarterback or not. There was a lot of, well, just wait until he gets back to being Bo Nix at the start of this year, but who are they even talking about when they say that? Last year, he came on towards the end of the season, but it wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire before that. Rather, Denver put in a safe game plan that maximized staying on schedule in early downs through the run game and RPOs. This year, it feels like those training wheels have been less effective, and when push has come to shove, Sean Payton has said fuck it and just let Bo rip it around the yard. I think Denver's season hinges on who Nix really is. They've got decent pieces around him, and the defense is one of the best in the league. As of this recording, the Broncos are 7-2 and have outscored opponents by 59 points and outgained them by 607 yards. They've had one of the softer schedules, but they've also shown off their ceiling more than other teams on this list. I think we'll definitely see the Broncos in the postseason, and I think it's fair to give them a good chance to win a game. At the very least, they'll be a very tough out. When the Packers traded for Micah Parsons, any big expectations for them this season got all the loftier. The thought was this young offense would continue to click while adding a superstar edge rusher would pay off big, especially if they got up early and forced opponents to pass. Instead, we've got an inconsistent group that loves playing to their competition's level. Maybe that means in the playoffs they'll rise to the occasion, but what we know for sure is that they've lost to both the Cleveland Browns and Carolina Panthers this season. This was supposed to be a Super Bowl team. Jordan Love especially has been tough to figure out. He'll throw for 360 yards and 3 touchdowns one week, then look disengaged and slog his way through a 270-yard performance for no touchdowns and a pick the next. But, by the numbers, this is one of the better units in the league. Their .16 offensive EPA per play is 3rd best, so maybe this group looks more frustrating than they are actually unproductive, but the ups and downs are what kept me from fully trusting this team. On the other hand, this defense ranks 17th in the league in EPA per play, and they've broken down at inopportune times, like when they allowed 40 against the Cowboys or when they finally broke down in the 4th quarter in Cleveland. There's absolutely a world where they come together and start dominating, but there's too many questions around them to be labeled as an official contender right now. The New England Patriots. Do you believe in Drake May? That's kind of the Patriots' whole season, a Drake May show. And how far they actually end up going is usually left on the shoulders of, well, how elite is Drake May right now? At 7-2, New England has a very good chance of making the playoffs regardless of what happens going forward. And they project like a playoff team too. They've got more than a respectable point and yard differential at 68 and 465, and both their offensive and defensive EPA per play numbers land in the top 10. So why aren't they contenders? Well, it's because they really haven't played anyone yet. Yes, there was that win against the Bills, and that was very impressive, but even with Buffalo included, their opponents combined for just a 27 and 49 record. That .355 win percentage is the worst in this group, and the thing is, the schedule isn't going to get that much harder going forward. Obviously, the Patriots can only play who's in front of them, and they've done well with that, But for such a new team, seeing them against mostly cupcake opponents keeps me from declaring they're in that upper echelon just yet. Next, these are the "are they for real" teams. These are groups that are clearly good teams but have a level of shakiness to them. Like, a collapse wouldn't surprise me, but neither would a deep run in the playoffs. These teams scored between 12 and 13. The Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have been one of the strangest teams to categorize this year. They aren't bad by any means, but it's difficult to predict where they're headed. Going undefeated the rest of the way and repeating as Super Bowl champs feels just as likely as ending the year with 8 wins and outside the playoff picture. Philly is 6-2 while playing through one of the toughest schedules out of anyone, with their opponents going a combined 35, 28, and 1. However, a lot of their wins have looked clunky, like holding on for dear life to a 21-point lead against Tampa, and 5 of their 6 victories have come in one-score games. Plus, while playing against better opponents will naturally bring some of your net numbers down, the Eagles' totals here are a bit alarming. They've outscored opponents by just 23 points, and actually have a negative yard differential at negative 255. But this offense has been finding its footing with new OC Kevin Patullo, and GM Howie Roseman just added Michael Carter, Jair Alexander, and Jalen Phillips to their defense at the deadline. So there's absolutely a path to improving here and getting more consistent. Still, the bickering and losses to the Broncos and Giants have left a weird taste in my mouth with this Philly team, even with how talented they are. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I guess the question is, how far can the Baker Mayfield show take them? Okay, maybe it's a little more complicated than that for Tampa Bay, but they've caught a lot of people's attention this year for Mayfield's performance, both with and without his top receivers in Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka, and Chris Godwin. What's got me the most worried about them, though, is the fact 4 of their 6 wins came on game-winning drives this year. They've been a group up to this point that's been fantastic at finishing these games, but sometimes this luck doesn't always follow you for a full season. Like the Eagles, they also have an unimpressive point and yard differential even though they have 4 more wins than losses, outscoring opponents by a combined 19 points and outgaining them by just 13. And while they have had some exciting games, this offense is ranked 17th overall in EPA and was one of the worst groups among these 17 other teams. The best part of this team, statistically at least, has been their defense. They currently rank as the 5th best team in defensive EPA per play and have generated 12 takeaways already. Shout out cornerback Jamel Dean, who already has a career-high 3 interceptions this season. Being in the NFC South makes the Bucs an easy team to trust in maintaining a division lead all the way to the playoffs, but I don't think they've proven they're a true contender up to this point. The Los Angeles Chargers. With injuries to Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, and Mekhi Becton, I think we're all just waiting for this Chargers O-line and team to collapse. And yet, they've kept pace. Granted, they've really only beaten Carson Wentz, who should have been in a body cast rather than a uniform, and the Tennessee Titans, who have been crossed off from contention since the season started. If they still had all their great linemen, I'd feel a lot more confident about them getting into the postseason and making some noise. But alas, we're left with this Chargers team that I think will more likely crumble, and the debate of how good is Justin Herbert really will get louder again. But based on what they've done to this point, they do deserve some respect. While they've only outscored opponents by 22, they've outgained them by 790 yards, the best difference among all of these teams. Plus, their defense remains one of the better ones in the league, landing at 11th in defensive EPA per play. The Chargers have been a bit of a depressing watch this year because they can still do things and be competitive, but you know you're not seeing the fully formed version. This next tier is the Don't Trust Them tier, and it was inspired by 303's hit song Don't Trust Me because all these teams are hoes and you shouldn't buy into them. These are teams that have had nice beginnings to the season, but their success might not actually be sustainable. Don't be surprised if one or all of these groups are footnotes at the end of the year. Teams in this tier scored between 8 and 10. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Let me just be blunt. I hate the Jacksonville Jaguars, but that doesn't mean I don't love watching them. Tune into any Jaguars game and you're going to see some bullshit. Whether it's Brian Thomas Jr. forgetting how to play wide receiver, Trevor Lawrence throwing a bad interception into the end zone against the Raiders, or a 99-yard pick 6 on Patrick Mahomes to totally flip a Monday night game, they'll definitely keep you entertained. But you'll say at least 5 times per contest that none of this makes any sense. Case in point, they're 5-3 and have a negative point differential and have outgained opponents by just 22 yards. The biggest bright spot for them is the fact they've played one of the toughest schedules up to now, facing opponents with a combined record of 36-32. And the defense has created explosive plays to keep them afloat, forcing 15 turnovers. However, eventually generating so many takeaways becomes not a bad thing, but suspicious, especially when that rate starts slowing down. After averaging 3 per game to start the season, they've gotten only 2 over their past 4 games, and in the 2 games they got none, they lost. For me, this Jaguars offense is too volatile and inconsistent, and relying on takeaways can be a very dangerous game to play. The San Francisco 49ers. Maybe the "don't trust them" label feels a little strong for San Francisco, which has a fantastic infrastructure with head coach Kyle Shanahan and has kept the ball rolling with Mac Jones at quarterback. Similar to the Chargers though, this group has been ravaged by the injury bug. From Fred Warner and Nick Bosa to Brandon Ayuk and Ben Barch, the players on the field are not the ones SF envisioned when they made their final roster cuts. Their defense lands at 21st in the league in EPA per play, and has taken away the ball just 6 times compared to the 13 turnovers on the offense, making them tied for the worst turnover differential among these 17 teams. And because the defense keeps losing pieces, you've got to bet on this offense to lift them up in certain situations. That's certainly possible, especially when you've got a guy like Christian McCaffrey at running back, but will it be a reliable gamble to make? No doubt, what the 49ers have done up to this point with their situation has been impressive. Unfortunately though, they're in the same division as the Rams and Seahawks, and I trust those teams a lot more than this one. The Pittsburgh Steelers. If it wasn't for their win over the Colts this past week, I would have been much more ready to call the Steelers fraudulent. But then they went and beat a group I think of as legitimate contenders, and so I'll be forced to be a little nicer to the team that loves to kick the shit out of my Browns. Just about everything about them though screams paper tiger. They've outscored opponents by just 7 points, and they themselves have been outgained by a total of 765 yards, a sort of bonkers total for a team that's won 5 of its 8 games. Before that game against Indy, their defense had been one of the worst in the league despite being one of the highest paid. Even after making life hell for the Colts, they still rank as the 22nd best group in terms of EPA per play. It's funny, the Steelers' original plan at the outset of the season was to have Aaron Rodgers play game manager and have the offense lean on the defense to secure leads. Instead, it's been a lot more of the offense straining to stay ahead so they can keep more of the playbook open and take Rodgers out of obvious passing situations where defenses can rush the hell out of him. The biggest feather in Pittsburgh's cap is that they've gotten this far while playing a pretty difficult schedule. Their opponents are a combined 35, 31, and 1. But I don't trust these guys at all. If the offense takes even a tiny step back and the defense goes back to playing like it has all year, we could see the Steelers falter quickly. And the 5th and final tier is called Fraud Alert. These are 2 groups that profile as lucky to be in the position they are. While I root for them to prove me wrong, I'll make a lukewarm take here on both of them and call my shot. One team scored a 5, the other a 7. The Chicago Bears. Alright. I feel bad putting the Chicago Bears in this tier because I do think Caleb Williams is improving and I think Ben Johnson is a good coach, but I'll be surprised if they end up being one of the 7 NFC teams left at the end of 18 weeks. They land here because they have been outscored by 12 points through the year and have only outgained opponents by a total of 77 yards. They do have a top 10 offense by EPA per play, which I think is a good reflection of both Williams and Johnson's abilities this year. However, their defense, like the Jaguars, seems to be producing takeaways at an unsustainable rate. So far, they've stolen possession away 19 times through just 8 games, and for a group that won by just 1 point against the Commanders and Raiders after generating 3 and 4 takeaways respectively in each game, I wonder just how much luck has been involved in getting them to this positive record. Beyond that, I think some of their more impressive numbers have been propped up by an easy schedule, as their opponents are a combined 24, 40, and 1. For me, I can't take them seriously until they string together a couple wins against better competition. The Carolina Panthers. You had to have known the Panthers were going to show up here, dead last and the most obvious fraud. Really, at 5-4, they should just be happy to be here, regardless of what happens with the rest of their season. Seriously, 2 weeks into the year and I was considering writing a "How did the Panthers get so bad" video. Then they suddenly started winning, almost entirely by the skin of their teeth. The most recent and most impressive of these was their 16-13 victory over the Packers. While it's been nice to see Bryce Young smile a bit more, I don't think anyone is kidding themselves that this Panthers team is going to do anything more than be a cute story. They've been outscored by opponents by 35 points and outgained by 53 yards, and they're the only team on this list with a negative offensive EPA per play, while their defense has done little to make up for it, ranking 24th in defensive EPA per play. I think we'll see Carolina win one more in their next game against the Saints, but I'm predicting a near total collapse as they face stiffer competition going forward. Then again, maybe the Panthers are finally putting it together. I don't think so, but someone out there might. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to give it a like if you did enjoy it and consider subscribing to the channel so you can catch the next one. Thanks, bye.